Hi there, it is Jo from Minerva, and we are starting today an exciting series, 10 episodes on how to sew lingerie. People often think that sewing lingerie comes as you get more experience after you've started sewing garments, but really you could start with underwear and then move on to garments. There really is no more skill in sewing lingerie than there is large items. In fact, if you sew in a small space, you might find that sewing lingerie is a lot easier. It takes up less space, you don't need the space for cutting out, and you can work really carefully on your skills before you move on to bigger garments. Today we're just going to do a little introduction to sewing lingerie, so I'm not going to make anything today, but I just want to show you some products that you might find useful because there's slightly different choices to make. I'm going to show you some stitch lengths on our machine, and I'm also going to show you a few top tips that you might find helpful if you're going to start sewing your own lingerie. My first tip is to start easy. So start off with something really simple, like a pair of knickers where you can really get to grips with using elastic and setting up your sewing machine. My second tip is to trace off your pattern. So if you don't do this ordinarily when you make garments, or if you've never done it before, you always just cut out your size from the paper piece, I do recommend that you trace off the pieces, because if any type of garment is something you're going to make again and again and again, it is underwear, and that is probably the pieces that will change size the most over time. So if you just trace off your pattern pieces, you can change your sizes. If you're making them for the first time and you don't even know if they're going to fit yet, it's a relatively small range of pattern pieces to trace off so that you can make adaptations when you start. If you start shaving little margins off your original pattern piece and when you make it, it doesn't fit, it's very difficult to go back to your original. So number 2 is always to trace off your pattern pieces. Number 3 is to measure yourself accurately and correctly. This is difficult. There's lots of different methodologies for measuring for lingerie, but my tip number 3 is to measure in the way that the pattern suggests, because the pattern is drafted for that style of measuring. So don't just choose your normal bra size, don't just choose what you've bought in the past, don't have a guess. Just measure yourself as the pattern suggests, and be kind to yourself. We're all different sizes, we're all different shapes. Some ask you to measure your full bust and your band bust size, and some ask you to find your cup depth, so that's sometimes from your bust apex down to the bust band. There's lots of different methods, so do use the one for the pattern that you're going to cut. I also suggest that you measure yourself every time that you make a pattern. So I probably make one or two bras a year. So I measure myself every single time. So even though I've got a toile from maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I know that really that one doesn't fit me anymore. So I need to measure myself every time I make the pattern so that I can make any adjustments that I need to. Number 4 is to manage your expectations when you're making lingerie. I don't know anyone that's made the perfect bra from the first one that they've made, or the perfect knickers in fact. So you need to make sure that when you embark on this sewing journey to make lingerie, that you're ready to do lots of trying out and lots of experimenting and lots of learning along the way. Always start off small. Don't start off with an underwide bra and get in a complete mess. Start off with some just a simple knicker pattern and get yourself sort of into the groove of this style of sewing, and then maybe move on to other items, and you'll soon gain lots and lots of knowledge and skill and tons of confidence. The more you make, the better you get. Number 5 of my make it simple and start simple is to choose simply something black or something white. And I know that sort of goes against why people make lingerie, and people have lots of different reasons, but it's a really good idea if you're still experimenting and you're doing a mock-up or a toile, and then you finally get it and then you realise you've run out of the elastic colour that you wanted because you used it on your practice piece. So make something black, make something white. There's lots of notions and lots of elastics and products that fit those two categories, black or white. And then once you know that you've got your fit right, then you can go into the magical world of choosing lingerie fabrics. My experience in making lingerie is purely as a home sewer, so I haven't done it as a profession or anything like that. I'm just going to share with you some of the things that I have learnt along the way of making my own underwear. I have been using a book called Demystifying and Bra Fitting Construction, which has really helped me. You can see I've picked up lots of tips along the way, and I would like to share those with you in this series. The series includes today, which is all about sort of getting started and what to choose and a few techniques. Episode 2 is to make the Iris knickers by Tilly and the Buttons. Episode 3 is to make a bodysuit, and that's with a stretch fabric. Going to look at using a twin needle and putting the press studs and a little gusset in the bottom of a bodysuit. Episode 4 is working with some more slippery fabric, so we're going to make a camisole top with lace, and also have a look at making our own straps, adding some sliders and rings. Episode 5 is to make some French knickers, so those go with the camisole from the previous week, and they've got a stretchy lace edge on, so I'm going to have a look at how to apply different types of lace. In episode 6 we're going to make a vest camisole, so that's an everyday one that you can wear under a suit or you can use as a thermal layer. It has a support cup section inside, so that's quite a useful thing to know. In episode 7 we're going to start taking a look at making bras. So the first bra that I make is just going to be a soft cut bra without a closure on the back, something really simple for you to get started, gain a bit of knowledge and experience. Number 8, we're going to take a look at using some lace. So we're going to use some of this lace to make a soft cut bra. We're going to think about how we get the layers to stretch and how we get that line so that it's really comfortable to wear. Episode 9 is one of our larger lingerie episodes because we're going to look at putting an underwire in a bra and making a full underwire bra, bra band, straps, closure, wires and all the things that entails. It's a sort of aspirational place to get to. It's not a great place to start, but if you've got some sewing knowledge all the way up to that episode, you'll be feeling quite inspired to make a full underwire bra. In episode 10 we're going to do a sew along of a corset for those who have been wondering how those are put together and how to try and fit those. That's going to be our final episode. I hope you will stick with us, and one of those things will be somewhere where you can hop onto your lingerie making journey. Most but not all of the patterns that I'm using today will involve some sort of stretch fabric. If you're making underwear, you'll be looking for that element of stretch. It's a really good idea to order your pattern first and maybe have a really good read of it and a good look of it before you order your fabrics, because you'll be needing to check the stretch recovery that you need to get the fit of that item, and you also might need to check all your elastic widths and everything. You can check that out on our website, but I found it really useful to get my pattern, have a really good read of it, and then I could make a really informed choice when I went to select my fabrics. There's a huge range of fabrics that you can choose to make underwear. It really depends on what sort of comfort you want, what feel you want. If you want any part of that underwear showing, so if say you're making a vest for example, will you be having a little piece of it showing if you're wearing a jacket, etc. So really think about what sort of fabric you'd like to choose, but you're probably going to be needing to check out the stretch width and the stretch length, which is given in our product description of every piece of fabric. Here are some fabrics that you might like to explore. So you can get a stretch velvet. So this has not much stretch in the length grain, but lots of stretch in the width grain. So you would use that to go across you if you were making a vest pattern. And when you're using lingerie patterns, instead of looking for the grain line where you would place your pattern piece parallel to the selvage edge, you'll be looking for the greatest direction of stretch. I call it dogs. I call it direction of greatest stretch. So I'm always looking for the dogs. So the dogs is the direction of greatest stretch. And quite often I will need to line up the grain line of my pattern piece with that property of the fabric, not matching it up on the grain line. And it's really important because that is how your underwear will manipulate and move to the shape of your body, by getting the pieces at the right angle on the fabric. Great thing about underwear is it doesn't use very much fabric, and we sell our fabric in increments of 10 centimetres, so you can get 30 centimetres of fabric if you're making a bra, or you can buy larger pieces or use up some pieces from other garments that you've been making. So a stretch velvet is a nice fabric to check out, and that comes in lots and lots of different colours. You can check out a fabric called ITY, which is an interlock fabric. It's stretchy and it's got 2 lots of stretch, look. Not so much in this direction. A bit less than the velvet in this direction. This has got a sort of glitter finish. This is absolutely stunning. Look at this. Would make a great jumpsuit actually, or dress. But I'm going to use it to make the camisole vest top, where I put a bra support inside. But then I have a sparkly top that I can wear underneath a jacket. You might also look for or be interested in satin fabrics, or fabrics that have a sort of movement or sheen. This one has hardly any stretch at all, so it's completely non-stretch on the straight grain, but on the width, on the cross grain, you're just getting as much as you would get in any fabric really, a cross grain give. So you'll need to make sure that the pattern you choose for this one doesn't require any kind of stretch or stretch recovery. I'm going to use this one to make the French knickers. This is a new fabric to me, but I thought it was really pretty and really worth an investigate. This is a jersey with a whole pattern on it. It's really stretchy, but it's stretchy a little bit in the length and lots in the cross grain. So that's the direction of greatest stretch that way. But I think that would make great knickers. I'm going to make the soft cut bra out of that, and I'm going to mix that with black elastic, so I get that sort of black and burgundy. Another stretch fabric that has different stretch widths is a pontile. You often see it as a sort of, you sort of associate it with pyjamas maybe, or thermals. It would make the bodysuit that I'm going to make in this series, and I'm going to use it to make the iris knickers. It's really soft, lovely cotton. If you don't want any polyester against your skin, then that's a lovely cotton. That comes in lots of different colours. You could just check out a normal stretch jersey. So this is perfect fabric for making underwear. I always, if I make a stretch top and I've got a little bit of fabric left over, I always make a pair of knickers out of the bits that are left over, so I don't have loads of jersey offcuts. So this is our Minerva core range jersey. It comes in lots of different bases. So there's a bamboo one, a baby soft one, a cotton one, and a few different patterns. So there's spots and stripes and stars, so you can check those out if you want to make some a fun draw of underwear. If you're going to be making a bra later on in the series, then actually quite often bra cups and the bra frame at the front aren't stretchy, but the bands are really stretchy, and you need to be really thinking about how your fabric's going to move, whether you're going to get the support that you want. But you can use a chantilly lace to make a sort of lace underwear set, but you'll be needing to line this. So I'm going to show you some options throughout the series of different types of lining to put behind lace. So this one has only got, it's a little bit of stretch. It's called a power net or a power mesh, and you use it a lot in underwear making, and you would use it behind your lace so that you've got a smooth finish, really glossy smooth finish against your skin, but you've got the pretty decoration of the lace fabric. Power net comes in lots of different strengths. You can strengthen your power net by layering it. So for your bra frame, for example, you can put 2 layers of this power net together and you get a firmer fabric. So we're going to take a look at how you can strengthen fabrics, keep them stretchy, and where to use stretch and where to use non-stretch. You might think that to make lingerie you need lots of specialist equipment and lots of specialist products, but actually you need stretch fabrics, and you can make them really successfully on your sewing machine. In fact, I hardly ever use my overlocker when I'm making underwear, because most of the techniques, either the technique conceals the raw edge, or the order and sequence of the construction will conceal all your raw edges. So some of the basic things that you might need are stretch needles for your machine, so that you can ensure that you're getting a good punch through the fabrics and you're not stretching them, manipulating them or puckering them. So you can try a stretch or a ballpoint needle. Both of those needles have a pointed tip, but slightly rounded, so it parts the weave of the fabric rather than stabbing through it. It's particularly good if you've got high content or high elastane content. I use my normal dressmaking scissors to cut out, but I would recommend that you have a really small pair of scissors for layering out seams and doing smaller and more intricate work. This pair of scissors comes as a set. It's a superb set. I have two sets. I have one with a ribbon tied round. Those are for thicker fabrics. So if I was using jersey, I would use these. And I've got a pair that don't have a ribbon tied round, and those are for my lighter fabrics like viscose lace, chiffon, silk, satin, all of those sort of fabrics. So I've got two sets of these scissor sets, and I keep one for thin fabrics and one for thicker fabrics. If you'd like to invest further, you can also get a pair of applique scissors. They have this smooth edge here, so you don't cut any of your fabric if you're layering a seam, and they are this shape so that you can lay out seam allowances. I've only just started to use these. They're really great if you're making an underwire bra, but not an essential item, just something to aspire to if you're going to take your sewing further. I have also tried using a rotary cutter to cut out my small pieces, but I have a smaller rotary cutter because a bigger one, I can't get around the curves quite as easily. I can manipulate the cutting line more easily with this one, which is 28mm. So this one is a little bit smaller. I have blades for this too. You'll need a flexi tape so that you can measure yourself. It's the only way you can do it. And you need to be making sure that when you take in your band measurement, if you're making any bras or tops, that you make sure that the tape stays level. I use lace pins. I invested in those when I started making lingerie because my big pins with the big glass heads on, the little knobble of the glass head kept getting caught in the lace all the time. So I use these pins. They're really fine. They go through the power mesh really nicely, because if you've got a thick pin, it's sort of, you can't pierce the fabric the same. So my lace pins are super useful. I can't use chalk on my fabrics when I'm cutting them out and trying to work out where to sew to sometimes. So I've got an air erasable pen. I can just find where I'm going to sew to, put a little dot and sew to that. So it's great just for little markings when you want to know where you're going to add stretch, where you're going to sew under the machine, to what point. So that's really useful. And I'm trying out for the first time in this series a Maraflex thread. And a Maraflex thread is an elastic thread, so it's not shearing elastic like you imagine it to be super stretchy. It's just a thread with a little bit of give, and I'm going to try it out in this series to see if it changes my sewing for lingerie. If you are going to use your overlocker, you can use a Seriflock thread, and this goes on your overlocker spools. It's really fine. So if you're doing a 4-stitch overlock, then you're not getting lots and lots of bulk in your seam. So you'll get your stitch line and your overlocked edge, but it will be nice and slim, especially if you're layering up different fabrics. My final product, which I will show you how to use on a bra tutorial, is a temporary glue. So this is a spray glue, and it's what you use when you want to use lace with a liner. And for ages, when I first started making bras, I made a lace bra, then I made a lining bra the same, and then I put the two pieces together. But along here, on all the seam lines in the bust cups, I was getting double seams, and I was getting a sort of lumpy finish once I'd got my top on. Or my garment on. I was getting a lumpy finish on my bra. So I've started to use spray glue to layer up the fabrics, and then I can sew them together and they will peel apart when the glue has dissolved, but I'll have all my seam lines in place by then. So that's quite specialist, but I'll show you how to use it later on in the series. Okay, so you're all kitted out, but essentially you need a tape measure, some pins and some scissors. Let's have a look on our sewing machine what we might particularly pay attention to if we're sewing lingerie. Okay, over at the machine, I'm going to show you a few stitches that you might want to be thinking about when you're sewing lingerie. If you want a straight line, then you need to use a lightning stitch, which is this one here, number 3. And you can see it's a sort of zigzag that's on an angle, and it makes it super stretchy. And when you use it, you will see the needle going side to side. And it's a really small stitch, but it still means that your fabric seams are stretchy. It's called lightning stitch because it looks like a little bit of lightning. It's a sort of offset zigzag. And from the right side, you won't see any of the stitches poking through. If you don't have a lightning stitch, then you can mimic this by putting your machine on a zigzag and making sure that your zigzag stitch is really narrow, 0.5 to 0. That means your zigzag won't have any width to it. It'll just be wobbling down like this. So you can choose your stitch length. I'm going to try this combination. So I've got stitch length 2, stitch width 0. Again, this is stretchy, but not as stretchy as the lightning stitch. I feel like if I pulled that anymore, I could snap it, but I am using the Minerva thread, so it definitely feels like a really stretchy seam. So you can try a lightning stitch, a narrow zigzag stitch, or for very secure seams and for when you get quite good at sewing your own underwear and you get so good at it that you want to make lots and make them last, then you can try a 3-step zigzag, and it looks like this. On my machine, number 5 is a 3-step zigzag. You can see those 3 little stitches that keep going to each point of the zigzag, and it's really strong, and it makes your underwear much more long lasting. If you need to overcast the edge of any of your underwear, say on the side seams of knickers or underwear, then you can use an overcast stitch if you have an overcast foot. When you sew it, it does 3 stitches and then pivots and then goes back 3 stitches. So it's a zigzag using little straight stitches. It's really strong, and the thing you have to try and get right with it is how far apart the zigzags are. And it's really good for finishing the edge, the bottom band of a bra, for finishing the elastic on knickers, for doing round necklines. It's super stretchy. That Minerva thread is very forgiving, but you wouldn't use it on a seam because you would be able to see the apexes of the zigzag stitch. If you don't have a 3-step zigzag, that doesn't matter. You can just use a normal zigzag, because there's one thing about 3-point zigzag that is absolutely frustrating, is it's an absolute pig to unpick. So while you're learning, just have your zigzag stitch as your finishing top stitch. Test it out on a piece of fabric before you start sewing. And use this as your finishing seam, your top stitching as such. And when you get really good at it, then you can move on to the 3-step zigzag, because you'll probably be doing less unpicking by then. The last little preparation thing that I'd like to show you before you delve into the world of lingerie is to work out how much stretch your fabric has got. Because once you've read the pattern and you know what you require, then you need to make sure that you're matching up a similar fabric. It doesn't have to be absolutely spot on. You can change the fit a little bit to accommodate different stretches, but you need to know how far away from the pattern draft stretch you are. So this is a piece of the Minerva core range jersey. This is the little blue spotty one, and I'm using my cutting mat to show you. So 0 is at this end, and we're going to measure 10 centimeters of our fabric and mark it. So here's our fabric. We want to know what cross grain stretch we're going to get. So we're going to line up the end of the fabric with the 0, hold it down firmly. We've got our pin at 10 centimeters, and we want to see where can we comfortably stretch that fabric to, and it stretches to 14 centimeters. So this fabric has 40% stretch. If it's stretched to 12, it would be 20%, 13, 30%, and so on. And this fabric goes to 14 centimeters, so it's got 40% stretch. We could do the same in the other grain. We have our 10 centimeter piece and stretch it that way. This fabric actually has 40% stretch in both directions. So this is ideal for making underwear, especially knickers. If we check out a stretch fabric, a stretch lace one, then you'll see sometimes they have different stretch in the width and the length. So this is the selvage edge. I've cut that specially so that you could see. So if we get our 10 centimeters, hold the fabric in place and stretch. We're only getting a sort of 20, bit more, maybe 25% stretch there. So that's 25% in the width. In the length, I'm going to get a lot more, I think. Getting towards 15 or 16, maybe just over 16. So we're getting 60 to 65% stretch in the width. Obviously, we're not going to be stretching our lingerie fabrics this much, because we would obviously need to choose a different size if we were stretching it that much, but it does give you an idea of how much stretch is in the fabric and how much you would require for your pattern if you can do a little stretch test or check your fabric properties against the stretch numbers on our website. Okay, so you're inspired to sew lingerie. You've got a few little techniques there and stitch lengths to try out on your machine. You've got an idea of some of the products you might be searching for. You can check out some of our stretch fabrics, and you can also check out over on our website what Minerva makers have been making. So if you use the hashtag lingerie, you'll see all the different items that people have been making. You can see which fabrics they choose. I'm going to choose core range fabrics in this video, so the video can be watched over a long period of time with our reorderable fabrics, but there's always different types there. There's stretch tulle, there's stretch chiffon, there's different types of mesh, so there's loads of different things to go and look at. Lots of different laces with maybe a border edge that you can use as a galloon edge, so there's lots and lots to go and look at. So I hope I've whet your appetite to come and join me in the next episode, where we make the iris knickers by Tilly and the Buttons, and we're going to have a look at applying different elastics. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon.